So thank you very much for having me, and it's a great honor to be here and introduce myself. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions. First, before I forget, we brought a few items of my 101-point mayoral program here in English. It's in the back. We will distribute it electronically too, but please take one with you if you like. It makes more sense in English, the title 101, than in Hungarian. It's about our vision, my team's and myself's vision about the future of Budapest and what should be done in the next mayoral term in the City Hall. To introduce myself, I have a master's in urban and regional planning from the Budapest Technology University, and I started as a transport activist in a very early age. I was 15 years old when I was already in the press in Hungary, advocating for better buses, better public transportation. My big first success was the new night bus network, which is already 20 years old at the time, in 2005. After 5 or 6 years being the leading voice, very young but leading voice in transport advocacy in this city, in 2010, when Mr. Tarlós was elected as the mayor of the city, and it was a major vacuum and gap in the whole city management. Gábor Demszky, the former mayor, was retiring after 20 years. There were major scandals hitting the city hall for many, many years. Criminal procedures were going on. I'm not overstating, half of the management of the transport company was in custody. So it was quite an unusual situation in Budapest at the time. And almost everyone knew in the city from 2006-ish, 7-ish, that there will be a change. Mr. Demszky was retiring, and it was somehow known by everyone that Mr. Tarlós will become the mayor. So from a very early point, from 2009, we started working on his mayoral program, our manifesto, and our activist group proposed to him, which he adopted to his program, to establish a Transport for London-like body to govern the transportation system of Budapest, because of many similarities between the governance structure of London and Budapest. Budapest's governance system is somehow copied from the Greater London Authority, or the London structure between boroughs and the capital city. We don't have any regions, as you know, and the boroughs or districts, as we call them here, are independent from the mayor and the central capital city. This is a very unique setup of powers, and it's very similar to how London is being governed. TfL, as we call it, BKK, was established, and in a very young age, I became the first CEO of the company. I was charged with setting up this whole system, the whole transformation of the Budapest transport management and governance from a very old post-socialist way of managing public transportation into a more 21st century approach, multimodality, managing cycling, taxis and roads and street space and public transport all together. And I led BKK for more than 4 years. I'm very proud of that period of my life. We achieved major shift in how the perceptions of public transportation in general in Budapest, the quality as well, and we have implemented many major projects. As it is in the press these days, in 2014, we already had some disputes, some of them publicly with the mayor at the time, Mr. Tarlós, but the final point in our relationship was the Russian metro refurbishment projects, where I had, from the very early point, I had a very clear approach that new metro train sets should be procured. I wasn't there when the public procurement was done, which the Russians have won, but about the whole concept of this project, we had a disagreement, not just with him, but with the government and the Russians as well. So after all, in 2014, December, I had to leave my position from BKK. And I worked in BKK. I represented BKK in the European Metropolitan Transit Authorities Board as well. So we built up a quite significant international presence for the city as well in transportation, and it still lasts. The current BKK CEO is leading EMTA as well. And to make it shorter, after that, I worked as a consultant. I worked as a internationally mostly. After that, I had some other public roles which are important. I led the transformation of the Hungarian Transport Museum, where we worked with a very, very good American architectural firm after an international competition, the Roscoe-Fideo Renfro. They designed the High Line in New York. And together with them and with very good Hungarian architects, we designed a new transport museum for Hungary. It's already in its current brownfield location in Kőbánya. It's open in the summer. It will reopen this May, but it hasn't been refurbished, so the plan hasn't been implemented. I hope it will be implemented once when Hungary has more financial resources to do so. But I'm very proud of that work which we carried out and transformed the whole Transportation Museum, its organization, its collection, into a 21st century museum. I served for 2 years as the CEO of the Budapest Development Agency, which was the government's suburban metropolitan investment agency set up in 2020, which was dealing mostly with the investments in railways, the suburban railways, and brownfield zones. And in 2022, the government decided that they eliminate this company and they eliminate their focus on the investment in the Budapest metropolitan region. Mr. Lazar became the minister, and since then he stopped almost all public investments in Budapest and its region, not just the ones which are related to the city hall, but the ones which fall into the powers of the government, like railway, suburban railway investment, and so on, and hospitals and parks too. In 2022 May, Mr. Palkovic, who I think you know very well, who was the transport minister at the time, asked me to lead the Transport Secretariat for this cycle, this term, in a solely professional role, not in a political role. And my task would have been to transform MÁV and Volán into the BKK way of managing things. So having a national transport authority body on top of the service providers and transform how public transportation is operated from this operator-based post-socialist model where we have these big post-socialist companies instead of a purchasing, organizing authority way of managing public transportation as it is done in many European countries. As you know, after half year, Mr. Palkovic has resigned because of topics which were not related to transportation, but more to energy and the energy crisis caused by Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And as he resigned, I resigned too, because I didn't want to be just a general state secretary working in whatever field. I went there and I took this half political, half professional job, because I really believe that we will be able to transform the national transport system in the same way as we did with BKK. In the last 1.5 years, I worked internationally, mostly for UITP, the Global International Public Transportation System or Association in the US, in the Middle East, and South Africa. So this is just a quick CV and introduction for you to understand who I am and where do I come from. And since I was involved with city politics for 20 years. I worked for Budapest in many different roles for 20 years. It came up several times already for me to run to be the mayor of Budapest. It came up last time in the last election cycle in 2019. One of the opposition parties approached me as well at the time, and it was in the press and it was covered. The current mayor was always curious about if I'm running or not at the time, but I decided not to at that moment. I didn't feel ready, and maybe I didn't feel that Mr. Tarlós could be beaten at the time, which wasn't the right instinct. But this was my instinct as well. I supported the current mayor's campaign at the time with some professional advice, and I voted for him. It was very clear at the time for me, and I think for many people in Budapest, that Mr. Tarlós, who felt to be very popular, but he didn't really want the job anymore. So he was campaigning on a basis which told voters every day that I'm forced to do this and I don't really want this to do this anymore. This was my feeling, and from the results, I guess this was the feeling of the majority of the voters at the time. In the last 5 years, as I was leading BFK and I had these jobs, I witnessed how the current mayor's approach to Budapest has changed very dramatically and rapidly after the municipal elections. From early 2020, it was fully clear that he is not interested. After a few months, he was not interested in serving Budapest anymore. He was only focusing on his prime ministerial campaign, first the primary, and then he hoped that he will become the Prime Minister of Hungary in 2022. it was in terms of urban policies, it was a very risk-averse strategy. He didn't really want to take any risk because despite that it was the start of a 5-year term, and taking risks is easier at the first years of the 5-year term. He was already in campaign mode for the national elections. And the government and the city hall's relationship wasn't very straightforward from the very first point. As you can imagine, the government was not happy, to say the least, about the opposition taking over Budapest. But on the third tier, I would say, there was a constant discussion and cooperation between the city hall and the government side. And some of the projects were, so there was some coordination between the city hall and the government in terms of project funding and daily operations. But then, when he announced his candidacy for being prime minister, all the relationship was frozen from that point, and since then, this is like that. There is almost no cooperation, even on the expert level these days, between the city hall and its institutions and the government. And I feel that that this results in a situation where currently, as we speak here today, or as we meet here today, there is no investment going on, no public investment going on in Budapest at all. And this has never happened in my life. And this is not the case in any of the other CEE capitals, if you look around from Warsaw to Prague to Bratislava, not to talk about Vienna. There is no major metro, tram, or suburban railway project being implemented at the time currently. There is no major investment in any of the public major junctions, major public squares, the Danube embankment, or anywhere else. There's not even a major road repair project going on at this time. And we are in the campaign, so you would think that this is the time when everything happens. There is nothing happening. So the development of Budapest has almost halted, and I feel that Budapest has become a battlefield of party politics, national party politics. And it's an interesting discussion who has more, who is more responsible for this, the government or the mayor. They are all playing into this notion of not solving anything but playing to their own political bubbles. That's what I see. I see that even when there is a situation where they could work together, both of them are interested not to do so, but playing to the opposition bubble in Budapest and say that the government stops everything, we cannot do anything, and they are and the city hall is just explaining themselves, even when there is a chance to do something. And the government is very happy to play to their mostly rural and outside of Budapest voter basis and say that, oh, this mayor is incapable of anything, and explain why they shift all the funds from Budapest to the other parts of Hungary. And this works politically quite well for everyone. The problem is that this doesn't work for the city of Budapest anymore. And my offer is for the city and for its voters is to provide a professional leadership for the city hall, a more capable leadership which is able to deliver on its promises on one hand, and on the other hand to provide an opposition mayor who is not willing to cooperate against the interests of the city with the central government, but who is not using this as a stepping stone and not willing to be a prime ministerial candidate in 2026. And I won't be on the list of any party's European parliamentary list and so on. So I don't want to use the mayoral position as a stepping stone for national politics. I only want to deliver for the city of Budapest. And as you will see in my program, I invited dozens of very, very good experts in all fields of city politics. Many of them are from both sides. Some of them are working in expert level for the government, some of them working for the city hall itself. And we assembled, I think, a more detailed program that's for sure, than the other candidates have currently, because both Mr. Karácsony's and Ms. Szentkirálly's program is shorter than 1 page. And this is a very detailed one. But even if you compare it with the programs of mayoral candidates in the last 10 years, this is a more detailed vision of how and which direction the city should be developed than any of those. So I'm very proud of that. This is somehow similar to what happened if you're aware of that example of Plan B in Bratislava. The current mayor of Bratislava he's an urbanist, and he had a very professional program-based campaign, and he won against the national party politics in Bratislava. This is something similar to that, what we try to achieve here. So the program is based on social housing and housing for public employees in both the national education, health, police system, and in the city system. I feel that this is one of the major issues in Budapest today, that there's almost no rental market outside of Airbnb, and there was no investment at all in the rental market or in public housing in this current mayoral term, and not in the previous one. As you can imagine, transportation is a very important point for me. Investing in public transportation, starting projects for at least 5 new tram lines in mostly outer boroughs and outer districts of this city, improving walking and walkability and cycling in the city is a very important point of this document and this program. Creating a continuous walkable route on the Pest side, along the Danube, from the swimming arena down to Chapel, is as well a very important point here as well. And I mean, I can go on. I wanted to mention these ones, but if you have any questions, I can touch on anything from animal welfare to healthcare, what is covered in my program. I would mention that one more thing, that if you... So what I'm struggling with this in this campaign is that in Hungary these days, everything is looked at on the Fidesz, not Fidesz axis. There is nothing else which you can talk in. And being in a race where there are 3 candidates it's hard to understand, even for the Hungarian press or some of the voters. And what I try to explain here is that there is no chance at all, according to any of the polls, any of the experts, there is no chance that Alexandra Szent-Király could win this match. She is on a clear 3rd place, and even though that Mr. Karácsony and myself, we are sharing not just the opposition voters, but some of the Fidesz voters as well, some of them are willing to vote for me instead of their own candidate. There is no scenario where Fidesz could come in as the low-think 3rd, as we say in Hungarian and maybe in other languages too, and become the winner of this race. This is a very important point from the political position. And my other point is that in terms of the district races in Budapest, in the districts where the opposition won in 2019, it's very easy to compare the performance and the delivery of the different districts. If you look at, for example, the 6 and the 7, which is just right next to each other, it's in its fabric, looking at the city fabric and what problems are there, these districts are almost the same. They are all the same kind of structure in the inner city. One is led by Mr. Soproni Momentum, the other is led by Mr. Niedermüller from DK. Their performance couldn't be further away. Terézváros, the 6th district, delivered on green public spaces, on redesigning streets, on providing new transportation options for elderly people, and so on. Nothing has happened in the 7th district, to be honest. The public spaces around the Bar district are as dirty and as chaotic as they could be. So, because in the districts there are several mayors, it's easier to compare their performance, and even if you criticize them, it doesn't become immediately a Fidesz, non-Fidesz issue. From the Lord Mayor or the Mayor of Budapest, there is only one. And currently, it comes up in discussions that if you criticize the current mayor, it almost becomes a government opinion. It does not. Because my criticism is not about his position against the government. My criticism is about his delivery on his promises. He had 135 promises in his 2019 manifesto, and 93 were not delivered. Some of them could be blamed on the government, but most of them could not be. And if you look at, for example, the City Hall's own parking lot, if you're aware, it's in the center of the city on Deák Ferenc tér. I remember when Mr. Karácsony was elected, in his first speech, the celebratory speech after the election, he said that this will be his first job to replace the parking lot where the socialist MPs' private and official cars are parking with a new park. After 4.5 years, nothing has happened. Now in the campaign, when I started criticizing him on this point, they removed the parking and now it's an empty plot. But implementing a small park in the parking lot of the City Hall with an almost €1 billion annual budget, it's not out of scope for this city hall to deliver, even in the crises which this city hall went through and the whole world went through related to COVID and the war in Ukraine. So my criticism against this city hall is that they haven't delivered on their promises. And despite they advocate themselves as green and participative, just this January what happened is that they cut back public transport services, which is not green. And when they were asked that how they never consulted, when the law says that this should be consulted, the CEO of BKK says that the turkeys are not asked before Thanksgiving, and this was her reaction to that. So you cannot preach about participation and green policies and then half year before the election cut back public transport services and then say that the turkeys shouldn't be asked before Thanksgiving. So my problem is with the delivery, the results, and the performance of this city hall, and this is why I'm running against Mr. Karácsony. As he said yesterday as well in his interview, the whole political landscape is changing in Hungary, as you are very well aware, and at the same time, the Budapest election system has been changed by this government and the parliament recently, which means that the old election system came back, which is a fully representative list-based election in the Budapest City Hall, meaning that whoever will be the mayor from the two of us, because the third one doesn't really have any chance, I think, from the two of us, will have to form a majority in a very, very fragmented new City Hall. The current City Hall and the current General Assembly was a more easy to navigate system because the mayors were there from the districts and it was easier to generate a majority because it was either left or right and one of them was in majority. Currently in a list-based system, the two-tailed dog party, our lists, maybe other lists will be there, and I'm almost sure, and I think this is his opinion as well, as he said yesterday, that none of the big parties, none of the big national parties, non-DK and their smaller parties, and not Fidesz will have majority in the General Assembly. So whoever will be the mayor will have to create a new kind of special coalition with all these new, either urbanist movements as ours or centrist movements as the two-tailed dog parties currently. So it will be a very new political situation. And whoever will be the mayor, the urban politics in Budapest will change from its current form where the old-fashioned left-wing parties are in majority, or before them, Fidesz had a clear majority there. So that's very quickly the introduction, political position, and the very short introduction of the program. I'm ready to talk about in more detail about any of them, and please, just to mention again, please don't forget about the program. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.